Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Sandy Bottom Homestead. And it's an important message today. What you do now will set the stage for your garden for next year. Remember that. And look, we got our corn here, and look at the base of the corn here. You see all these weeds? Clearly, your boy is getting a little bit tired. Clearly. Ain't no time to give up on your garden. Absolutely not. Because even if for some odd reason you're watching this channel, which I'm thankful that you are, and you're not growing a fall garden, you still can set the stage for next year to move into a more successful gardening season. And that's what we need to think about, is we're always thinking about what's next and what we can do to improve our gardens. Like take this bed, for example, that we had our buckwheat in. First of all, we do have a little bit of germination, so we're gonna go ahead and probably turn the soil over and get everything worked in. But this bed right here, I mean, we didn't really do anything in it. We had some flowers growing in it, some buckwheat, and our bees over here did benefit from it. But as a whole, it seems like it was kind of a wasted space until you really start thinking about it. The goal in the garden is always to be working your soil and improving it, making it better, and then just kind of charging it up constantly. So if you're planting now for fall, then rotating your crops is a big part of it. This will help you in the future. If you are not planting, then amending your soil is a big part of it too. But also getting the weeds under control. We've been really busy lately. You know, we've cleaned out, I had to count 3 beds, and we're going to be planting again, but this is all part of it. You know, even if we weren't planting them, we would still be cleaning out all of these beds. I mean, this is the next bed to be planted more than likely, and we've weeded it, we've come around and we've done what we can. There's still mulch on it, so what we're gonna do is, going in line with what we're talking about, is we're gonna turn this mulch back into the soil. Now this will happen naturally as we rebury these lines that have kind of worked up. These drip lines always kind of come to the surface, so we're constantly re-putting them in, doing stuff like that. So it's just part of the process, but that in itself will help to revitalize the soil, feed it a little bit, give it some more drainage, and then help all of this mulch break down. On the subject of mulch, mulch. Always be mulching. That's the way we look at it here, is mulching does a number of things for your garden. And one thing is it's gonna help suppress those weeds. It'll help keep them down, and especially this time of year when we're still warm, it's kind of getting to a slow season in the garden, but these weeds, you're gonna start getting your winter weeds that will pop up. Now you may get really cold in your area, and it may be, you know, you may be getting into freezing weather already, but there's still weeds that will take hold, and they can be very hard to get rid of. So mulching is one of the things that we can definitely do to keep that under control. And then as far as everything else, it's temperature regulation. If you keep the soil cooler, you can support the life within the soil. So you can do that as well. And so that's one thing that we are constantly doing, is we're always trying to add mulch. Here's the broccoli bed that we direct sowed. Nothing's germinating yet, not that I can tell, but we put down these alfalfa pellets, and they're gonna kind of act as like a mini mulch. But as soon as we get some decent growth on this broccoli, then we're gonna come back when we can definitely see where the plants are, and we're gonna mulch, and that will help set the stage. I mean, you can see right now that our soil level is low. You can see right there, we need to put about an inch or so of soil back into this bed. So this helps build it back up. But what it's doing also is it's priming it for the next soil addition that we put in. So any mulch that we put on, we're just gonna put the soil directly on top of the mulch, and then that will help create a layer. And as the rains and stuff like that come in the winter time, it'll work down in between all of that mulch and then help to break it down even more faster and add the nutrients back into the garden. So this is a really good time of year to start doing stuff like that. And it's all a micro step approach. What do I mean by micro step? It's just little baby steps here and there. You know, it's adding the mulch. You know, am I gonna come back right now and add soil to my garden? No. I'm not, it's too much. It's too hot, it's too much work, and I've got too much going on in the garden and in my life right now to do that. But what I do have is I have a plan in place of when I want to do that. And we do it every winter. So every winter we'll kind of start working our way, our gardens, and topping them off, stuff like that. Every garden will get a load of soil to some extent. It may not be a bunch. We may just put a little bit on top. But what I do know is we're going to end up mulching it and then putting some soil at minimum back on top. And if the bed's empty, then we'll do more. If it's full, we'll do less, stuff like that. But either way, this is going to be setting the stage for the next year, because when we come into this season that we're going into soon, and I know it's weird, it's like, well, why the hell are you talking about this now? It's like, because this is the time. This is when you can jumpstart all of this stuff, because the warm temperatures will help everything break down. And then in the cool season, it's still continuing to work, but you want to jump start it early. So the earlier we can get on it, the better. Here's our newly seeded rutabaga bed. Let's lift up the skirt and see what's going on under there. Look at that. We have germination. So we will start seeing, look, there's another one right there. Barely see it. It must have germinated last night. So we now know that we are starting here. So what we'll do is we'll wait for these to come up, and then we'll come up and re-mulch in between these rows to keep the moisture back onto the garden. Fertilizer. Don't sleep on fertilizer, man. You may not have anything in the garden, but a light sprinkling of fertilizer can really charge your soil as well and give it nutrients to keep it going, to keep the microbiology active and moving in the right direction. Because we got to think, if we're growing in our garden 3 seasons out of the year, maybe even 4 seasons, we've got to rebuild it. But if we're using organic fertilizer, what's the key for the organic fertilizer? Do you know? It's got to break down in the soil. So once it starts to break down, it's not just breaking down for the hell of it, it's breaking down to refill it and to feed the soil. And that's what the activity is that we need to get everything moving, again, to get it going for the right direction for the next year. So the same with this corn bed, the sweet potato bed, and this is one reason why I plant over and over and over, and then I factor in a rotation of bed resting, because what I want to do is I want to keep the soil active. It may be hard to believe, but active soil is really good. Sorry about that, I just about got stung by one of my bees. They're a little bit antsy right now. We're coming into hopefully a nectar flow, so they're kind of gearing up, and you get a little close early in the morning, ain't good. But we keep this soil active. So, you know, a little bit of weed in there is not bad. And when I say weed, I don't mean cannabis, I mean weeds. I mean, let's keep it real. But you know, we've got a little bit of weeds in there, and the roots are still working the soil. They're decompacting it, they're working their way through. Some weeds will feed the soil, some weeds won't. But all of this is stuff that we take into account. And so that's why you don't see me totally weeding all the beds all the time. What I do is I just try to keep them down so the weed seed bank doesn't build up. So we're working our way through this one. You can see here, we removed some weeds, we've got some more. Keeping soil active is not just feeding it and stuff like that, it's growing in it. We need to have things actually growing. It doesn't do your bed any good to sit empty with nothing growing in it. Nothing. We need to be doing something to it. We need to be growing in it, mulching it, feeding it, watering it, stuff like that, and then keep that soil active, keep building that biological life within it, because that's what's going to get you going for the next year. That's what's going to keep you going into the next season and the season after that. It's all of these little tiny efforts that we do in between each season and even during the season. And that's why we're fertilizing all the time. That's why we're composting. That's why we're mulching. That's why we're seeding. That's why we're digging and turning the soil, feeding it, all that stuff. Everything you do makes a difference in your garden, because especially if you're doing like containers, and I kind of consider raised beds containers. They're just really big containers. It takes a little bit extra effort. You don't have the natural earth to do anything to help you. So we're kind of building on that and just kind of working it over and over. So remember, as this season comes to an end, which is the summer season, we're getting into the fall season, there is a whole slew of projects you can do that don't take long. That, I mean, 10, 15 minutes at a time, and you can work your way through your entire garden and get it all set up. So then when the next season comes, you can be off to the races. And that's how you get really good growth, maximizing your garden space and all of the time that you put into your garden. And then you get to reap the benefits in the future. So if there's anything like this that you guys do in your garden, anything, like if you look at it and you're like, hey, I need to move forward into my garden in the future, what do you do that you think of to move forward in the future in your garden that kind of sets the stage for the next season? Because I think one of the worst things you can do is just sit on your hands and do nothing for your garden. Don't want to do that.
Good